10,000 babies were born without arms, without legs, without ears, some without eyes. Their mothers had taken one pill during pregnancy, one single pill marketed as the safest sleeping medication ever created. The pharmaceutical company said it was impossible to overdose. They said it was so safe you could give it to children. They said pregnant women could take it without any risk. They were catastrophically wrong. In Europe, 10,000 babies were born with severe birth defects between 1958 and 1962. Limbs that never developed, organs that never formed, a generation of children damaged before they were born. But in the United States, only 17 babies were affected. Only 17. Not because American mothers didn't want the drug, not because American doctors didn't prescribe it, because one woman at the FDA said no. Her name was Frances Oldham Kelsey. And this is the story of how she saved an entire generation of American children by refusing to approve a drug that every other country had already approved. This is why every medication you take during pregnancy today has been tested for birth defects. This is the blood law written in the bodies of 10,000 children. Germany, 1957. Chemie Grunenthal, a German pharmaceutical company, launches a new drug called Thalidomide. The brand name is Contragen in Germany. The company markets it as a sedative and sleeping pill. But here's what makes it special. Here's what makes it revolutionary. You cannot overdose on thalidomide. That's what the company claims. Take one pill, take 10 pills, take 100 pills. You won't die. This is huge. This is unprecedented because in 1957, barbiturate overdoses are killing thousands of people every year. People taking sleeping pills and never waking up. Suicide by sleeping pill is common. So a sleeping medication that's impossible to overdose on, that's a miracle drug. Doctors prescribe it everywhere. It becomes wildly popular in Germany, then spreads across Europe. Britain approves it in 1958. Australia approves it. Canada approves it. 46 countries approved thalidomide between 1957 and 1961. Millions of people take it, and it works. It helps you sleep. It reduces anxiety. It even helps with morning sickness during pregnancy. Doctors start prescribing it specifically to pregnant women for nausea, for insomnia, for stress. The company never tests it on pregnant animals. They never check what it does to developing fetuses. They just say it's safe and doctors believe them. September 1960, the William S. Merrill Company, an American pharmaceutical firm, submits a new drug application to the FDA to sell thalidomide in the United States. They want to call it Kevidon. They've already printed marketing materials. They've already contacted doctors. They've already distributed samples to physicians across the country. 2.5 million tablets have been given to American doctors to hand out to patients as samples. This is before FDA approval, before any safety review. Just free samples to 1,200 doctors who gave them to approximately 20,000 patients, many of them pregnant women. The company is confident the FDA will approve the drug quickly. After all, 46 other countries have already approved it. Why would America be different? The application lands on the desk of Dr. Frances Oldham Kelsey. She's a new FDA medical reviewer. She's been at the job for exactly 1 month. This is her first major drug application. The company expects approval in weeks. They've told their sales team to prepare for launch. They've scheduled advertising campaigns. This is going to be their biggest product. And then Frances Kelsey reads the application. Something is wrong. The data doesn't make sense. Frances Kelsey has a PhD in pharmacology. She knows how to read scientific studies. She knows what proper drug testing looks like. And this application is inadequate. The company claims thalidomide is completely safe, but their studies are incomplete. The toxicology reports are inadequate. The clinical trials are poorly designed. Sample size is too small. Control groups missing. Statistical analysis weak. Most importantly, there's absolutely no data on what the drug does during pregnancy. None. Zero. Not a single study. The company has tested the drug on adult humans. Yes, they've shown it helps people sleep. They've shown it reduces anxiety. They've shown you can't overdose on it. But not on pregnant women, not on developing fetuses, not on reproductive outcomes. They haven't tested whether it crosses the placenta. They haven't tested whether it affects fetal development. They haven't tested it on pregnant animals to see what happens to the offspring. This is a drug they're actively marketing to pregnant women for morning sickness, and they haven't done a single pregnancy safety study. Frances Kelsey sends the application back. Rejected, incomplete, more data required. The William S. Merrill Company is shocked, absolutely shocked. Nobody has ever rejected thalidomide. 46 countries approved it. Some approved it in weeks. Britain approved it with minimal review. Germany approved it with almost no review at all. And now some junior FDA reviewer in America is saying no? This is ridiculous. This is bureaucratic obstruction. This is one person holding up a miracle drug that millions of people need. They resubmit the application with slightly more data. Some additional animal studies, some expanded toxicology reports, but still nothing on pregnancy. Kelsey reads it. Not good enough. Rejected again. Still incomplete. Show me pregnancy studies. Show me what this drug does to a developing fetus. The company is furious now. They've been trying for months. They start applying pressure. They call Frances Kelsey's supervisor at the FDA and demand that she be overruled. They send letters to FDA leadership questioning her competence. They imply she doesn't understand the science. They suggest she's being overly cautious to the point of obstruction. They point out that she's new to the job. She's only been an FDA reviewer for a few months. She's inexperienced. She doesn't understand how drug approval works. She's holding up a drug that's already approved in 46 countries. What does she know that the entire rest of the world doesn't know? The pressure intensifies. The company starts calling her directly, multiple times per week, asking her to reconsider, asking her to approve the drug, telling her that American patients are suffering because she won't approve a safe medication. They send representatives to meet with her in person. These are not friendly meetings. They tell her she's being unreasonable. They tell her the drug is safe. They show her testimonials from European doctors praising thalidomide. They show her sales figures proving millions of people are taking it with no problems. They ask her what evidence she has that it's dangerous. She doesn't have evidence it's dangerous. She has absence of evidence that it's safe. That's not the same thing. Her job isn't to prove drugs are dangerous. Her job is to make companies prove drugs are safe. They haven't proved it. They keep trying to wear her down. They submit the application again in January 1961. Rejected. They submit it again in March 1961. Rejected. They submit it again in June 1961. Rejected. They submit it again in September 1961. Rejected. Every time the same answer. Show me pregnancy data. Show me fetal development studies. Show me proof this drug is safe for the patients you're marketing it to. And every time the company comes back with everything except pregnancy data, because they don't have it. They never did the studies, and they're hoping if they submit enough times, eventually she'll give up and approve it anyway. November 1961. Dr. Kelsey is still refusing to approve thalidomide. The company is furious. They've been fighting her for 14 months. 14 months of rejection. 14 months of demands for more data. 14 months of being told no by a first-year FDA reviewer. And then something happens in Germany that changes everything. Doctors start noticing a pattern, a horrifying pattern that nobody can explain. Babies are being born with birth defects unlike anything doctors have ever seen. Not occasionally, not rarely, constantly. Every week, more cases. Every month, the numbers climb. The condition is called phocomelia. The word comes from Greek. Phoc means seal, melia means limb, seal limbs, because that's what the babies look like seals. Babies born with hands attached directly to their shoulders, no arms, just hands growing out of the torso where arms should be. Babies born with feet attached directly to their hips, no legs, just feet, no knees, no ankles, just stumps with toes. Some babies have no limbs at all, just a torso and a head. Some babies have partial arms, one arm fully formed, the other just a hand. No symmetry, no pattern, random, horrifying. Some babies are born deaf because their ear canals never formed. Some are born blind because their eyes didn't develop properly. Some have internal organs that never fully developed, hearts with holes in the chambers, kidneys that don't function, intestines that grew outside the body instead of inside, esophagus that doesn't connect to the stomach. These are not minor defects. These are catastrophic failures of human development. Phocomelia is extremely rare under normal circumstances. You might see one case in an entire country in an entire year. It's a genetic abnormality that occurs naturally about once in every 100,000 births. But in Germany, between 1959 and 1961, thousands of babies are born with phocomelia. Not one, not 10, thousands. The numbers don't make sense. Something is causing this, something environmental, something new. Doctors start investigating. Is it a virus? Is it radiation from nuclear testing? Is it pollution? Is it something in the water supply? Is it a new pesticide? They test everything. They find nothing. Then Dr. Widukind Lenz, a German pediatrician in Hamburg, starts asking different questions. He doesn't ask what the mothers were exposed to. He asks what the mothers took, what medications, what pills, what prescriptions. He interviews mothers of affected babies. He creates a list of every medication each mother took during pregnancy. He compares the lists, and he finds it, the one medication that appears on every single list, thalidomide. Every mother of a baby born with phocomelia took thalidomide during pregnancy, every single one. Not most, not some, all of them. 100% correlation. The drug doesn't just cause birth defects. It causes catastrophic life-altering deformities, and only if taken during a specific window of pregnancy, days 20 to 40 of gestation, the exact time when limbs are forming. If a pregnant woman takes thalidomide during those 20 days, her baby will be born without arms or legs, guaranteed. The German government pulls thalidomide from the market in November 1961. Britain pulls it, Australia pulls it, country after country pulls it, but the damage is done. Between 1958 and 1962, approximately 10,000 babies worldwide were born with thalidomide-related birth defects, the majority in Germany and Britain. Babies with no arms, babies with no legs, babies with flippers instead of limbs, parents who had taken one single pill during pregnancy, and their child was born permanently disabled. The pharmaceutical company, Chemie Grünenthal, initially denies responsibility. They say the birth defects must be caused by something else. They say there's no proof thalidomide is dangerous. They fight the evidence for months. Finally, in 1962, they admit it. Thalidomide causes birth defects. They stop manufacturing it, but they never apologize. They never compensate the families, not voluntarily. It takes decades of lawsuits to force the company to pay. Here's what happened in the United States. Frances Kelsey had been blocking the drug for 14 months when the news broke about the birth defects. If she had approved it, if she had given in to the pressure from the pharmaceutical company, thalidomide would have been on American pharmacy shelves. Millions of American women would have taken it during pregnancy. The same 10,000 birth defects that happened in Europe would have happened here. An entire generation of American children would have been born without limbs. But she didn't approve it. She said no. And she kept saying no even when the company called her unreasonable, even when they tried to go over her head, even when they told her she was delaying a miracle drug. Because of Frances Kelsey's refusal to approve thalidomide, only 17 American babies were born with thalidomide-related birth defects. Only 17. And those 17 were from the samples. Remember the 2.5 million tablets the company distributed to doctors before FDA approval? Those samples. Pregnant women took those samples. 17 babies were born damaged. If Kelsey had approved the drug for full market release, the number would have been in the thousands. She saved an entire generation. President John F. Kennedy awarded her the President's Award for Distinguished Federal Civilian Service in 1962. She was the second woman ever to receive it, but the recognition wasn't just for her. It was acknowledgement that the system had failed, that a drug had killed and maimed thousands of children in other countries because approval processes were inadequate, that pharmaceutical companies could not be trusted to police themselves. October 10, 1962, President Kennedy signs the Kefauver-Harris Amendment to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. This law completely rewrites how drugs are tested and approved in the United States. Before thalidomide, pharmaceutical companies only had to prove their drugs were safe. They didn't have to prove they worked. They could sell you a pill that did nothing as long as it didn't kill you. After thalidomide, companies have to prove their drugs are both safe and effective. Before thalidomide, pharmaceutical companies could test drugs however they wanted. Sloppy studies, incomplete data, no controls. After thalidomide, the FDA requires rigorous clinical trials. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. Animal testing before human testing. Controlled studies, placebo comparisons, statistical analysis. Before thalidomide, pharmaceutical companies didn't have to test drugs on pregnant women or animals. After thalidomide, pregnancy testing is mandatory. Category A, B, C, D, X. Every drug must be tested for reproductive harm. If it causes birth defects, it must be labeled. Before thalidomide, pharmaceutical companies could distribute free samples before FDA approval. After thalidomide, no samples until approval. No marketing until approval. No sales until approval. Before thalidomide, informed consent for clinical trials was optional. After thalidomide, patients must be told they're in a trial, what the risks are, what the drug does, and they must consent in writing. Every protection you have when taking medication today exists because 10,000 children were born without arms and legs. Every warning label on pregnancy medication exists because Frances Kelsey said no when everyone else said yes. Frances Kelsey continued working at the FDA for another 45 years. She retired in 2005 at the age of 90. She died in 2015 at the age of 101. She spent her entire career making sure what happened with thalidomide never happened again. She personally reviewed thousands of drug applications. She helped write the regulations that govern drug testing today. She trained generations of FDA reviewers. She made sure they understood that saying no is not obstruction. Saying no is protection. The pharmaceutical company that made thalidomide, Chemie Grunenthal, never faced criminal charges. The executives were never jailed. The company paid settlements in civil court, but never admitted moral responsibility. In 2012, 50 years after the disaster, the company finally issued an apology. 50 years. The thalidomide children are now in their 60s. Many died young from complications related to their birth defects. Many struggled their entire lives with disabilities that could have been prevented if the drug had been properly tested. In Germany, there are approximately 2,400 survivors. In Britain, approximately 450. In Canada, approximately 100. In the United States, 17. Only 17 because one woman at the FDA refused to approve a drug without proper evidence. Today, when you pick up a prescription and see a warning label that says, "Do not take if pregnant," or Category D, evidence of risk to fetus, that exists because of thalidomide. When you participate in a clinical trial and sign an informed consent form, that exists because of thalidomide. When a new drug takes 10 years and costs billions of dollars to bring to market because of extensive testing requirements, that exists because of thalidomide. When pharmaceutical companies complain that FDA approval is too slow, too expensive, too burdensome, remember this: 46 countries approved thalidomide quickly. 10,000 babies were born without limbs. The United States required proper testing. 17 babies were affected instead of thousands. Slow approval saves lives. Expensive testing saves lives. Burdensome requirements save lives, because without them, pharmaceutical companies will sell you poison and call it medicine. The drug company that tried to sell thalidomide in the United States, William S. Merrill Company, was eventually absorbed by other corporations. The executives who pressured Frances Kelsey to approve the drug faced no consequences. They moved on to other jobs. They retired wealthy. They never apologized. Frances Kelsey was the only person in the entire thalidomide story who did the right thing. She was 29 years old when she started at the FDA. She'd been on the job for 1 month when thalidomide landed on her desk. She had no idea that her decision would save thousands of children. She just did her job. She required proper evidence. She refused to approve a drug that hadn't been adequately tested. She said no. And because she said no, an entire generation of American children were born with arms and legs. The next time you see a medication warning label, remember the 10,000 children who were born without limbs because a pharmaceutical company said a drug was safe without testing it. The next time you hear someone complain about FDA regulations being too strict, remember that Frances Kelsey was called unreasonable for requiring evidence. The next time you take medication during pregnancy and see the category warning, remember that those categories exist because doctors once prescribed a drug to pregnant women without knowing what it would do to their babies. Every safeguard exists because someone bled for it. Every regulation exists because someone died without it. Most of the time we don't know their names, but not Frances Kelsey. She lived to 101. She saw the children she saved grow up, have children of their own, live normal lives with arms and legs and fully formed bodies. She knew what she prevented, and she never stopped fighting to make sure it never happened again. Most of the time the company wins. Most of the time profit beats safety. Most of the time the person who says no gets overruled, but not this time. This time, one woman with 1 month of experience at the FDA said no to a pharmaceutical company and said it enough times, loudly enough, persistently enough, that thousands of American children were born healthy. That's what a blood law is. Someone refuses to let people die. Someone demands evidence. Someone says no when everyone else says yes. And because of that refusal, the law changes. The system changes. Lives are saved. Frances Kelsey didn't just save 17,000 children by preventing thalidomide approval. She saved millions. Every child born after 1962 benefits from the testing requirements she fought for. Every medication approved today is safer because she refused to approve one that wasn't. The law is written in her courage. And it's written in the bodies of 10,000 children who were born without arms because nobody else said no.